The ambassador's gift to Ron Vega straightened his ceremonial collar as he gazed out at the twin moons of Elysia from his quarters in the Eastern Spire. After 3 years as Earth's ambassador to the Stellar Covenant, he had finally received an invitation to the sacred festival of twin moons. The crystalline towers of the capital city, Lumaria, sparkled beneath him, their facets catching and amplifying the unusual blue-violet moonlight. "Ambassador, your escort awaits," announced his assistant Mira, her holographic form flickering slightly at the doorway. "Thank you, Mira. Any last-minute protocol updates I should know about?" Toran asked, running a hand through his dark hair. Despite years of diplomatic training, Elysian customs remained bewilderingly complex. "Just remember, no direct eye contact with the Chancellor for more than 3 seconds. And don't refuse any ceremonial offerings," Mira replied. "And, sir?" The delegation from Europa Colony sent word. "They're quite interested in how you're received tonight." Toran nodded grimly. Earth's position within the Stellar Covenant remained precarious. Tonight's festival could strengthen or severely damage humanity's standing among the ancient stellar nations. The journey to the Crystal Palace took them through gardens where bioluminescent flora pulsed in rhythm with distant music. Elysian nobles glided past, their translucent skin glowing from within, elaborate attire floating around their willowy forms as though gravity were merely a suggestion. Upon entering the Grand Hall, Toran felt the familiar weight of being the only human in a sea of ethereal beings. Chancellor Lyra Astralis presided over the gathering, her ancient eyes reflecting centuries of wisdom. "Ambassador Vega." The Chancellor's voice resonated directly in his mind rather than disturbing the ambient music. "You honor us with your presence on this sacred night. The moons align only once in 17 years. Toran bowed precisely as instructed. "The honor is mine, Chancellor. Earth values its place in the Covenant deeply." A subtle smile crossed her luminous face. "I've observed your efforts these past years. Tonight, you shall receive a gift befitting your service." Before Toran could respond, the Chancellor gestured and the crowd parted. 2 figures approached, moving with identical grace though their appearances contrasted sharply. Both possessed the characteristic Elysian height and otherworldly beauty, but there the similarities ended. "My daughters, Neria and Selene. They shall be your companions for this evening's festivities." The first, Neria, approached with confident steps, her skin shimmering with a fiery golden light, eyes intense as molten amber. "Ambassador," she said aloud, defying convention by using her physical voice. "I've studied your diplomatic tactics with interest." Her sister Selene moved like flowing water, cool silver blue light emanating from her form. "We're curious about you," she whispered, her voice like wind through crystal chimes. "Few humans navigate our world as skillfully as you have." Around them, the gathered nobility buzzed with surprised whispers. Toran realized the magnitude of what was happening. The twins were members of the ruling bloodline, rarely seen outside their scholarly pursuits and ceremonial duties. "The gift of their company is unprecedented," murmured an aide in his ear. "The Chancellor has never offered her daughters as companions to any diplomat, let alone a human one." As the night progressed, Toran found himself drawn into increasingly intimate conversations with the twins. They led him through ancient rituals, their hands occasionally brushing against his as they guided him. Each touch sent unusual sensations through him, not unpleasant, but intense, as though some energy transferred between them. "You feel it, don't you?" Neria asked as they stood beneath a crystal dome reflecting the twin moons. "The connection. Most of your kind cannot perceive it." "What exactly am I feeling?" Toran asked. Selene's silver eyes met his. "The beginning of understanding," she said softly, "and perhaps something more dangerous." Whispers in crystal halls, the second night of the festival found Toran following his enigmatic companions through lesser-known passages of the Crystal Palace. Neria led with purposeful strides, her golden glow illuminating the translucent corridors, while Celine drifted behind, occasionally trailing her fingers along ancient inscriptions that pulsed with light at her touch. "Most diplomats never see beyond the public chambers," Neria remarked, glancing back at Toran with a hint of amusement. "But you've earned a deeper glimpse into our world. Though some would question our judgment in bringing you here," Celine added, her voice barely above a whisper, "the archives aren't typically open to outworlders." They arrived at a hexagonal doorway inscribed with symbols that shifted and rearranged themselves continuously. Neria pressed her palm against the center, and the crystalline surface rippled like water before dissolving inward. "The memory archives," she announced. 17,000 years of Elysian history, preserved in living crystal." Toran stepped through the threshold into a vast chamber where countless crystal shards hung suspended in the air, each containing swirling lights within. The archives seemed to extend infinitely upward, disappearing into darkness despite the glow emanating from the crystals themselves. "This is extraordinary," Toran breathed, his diplomatic reserve momentarily forgotten. "It's more than a repository of information," Celine explained, moving to stand beside him. "These are experiences, emotions, perspectives, all preserved exactly as they were lived." Neria approached a floating shard at eye level and gestured for Toran to join her. "I want to show you something relevant to your mission here." When he stood beside her, she guided his hand toward the crystal. "Touch it with me." Their fingers made contact with the surface simultaneously, and Toran's perception shifted dramatically. He was suddenly experiencing memories from centuries past, the first human delegation to Elysia, viewed through Elysian eyes. He felt their curiosity, their initial wariness, and most surprisingly, their hope. When the vision faded, he found Neria watching him intently. "You felt it?" she asked. "Yes," he replied, still processing the intensity of the experience. "They were more optimistic about human relations than our historical records suggest." "History is written by those with agendas," Celine commented, approaching another crystal. "Would you like to see something more personal?" Before he could respond, a voice interrupted from the archive's entrance. "My daughters, I see you've taken our guest into restricted areas." Chancellor Lyra stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable. Neria straightened. "Mother, I was showing the ambassador historical context for his mission." "And I permitted this excursion," the Chancellor replied. "But there are limits to our transparency." Even during the festival, her gaze shifted to Toran. "Ambassador, I hope my daughters haven't overwhelmed you with Elysian mysteries." "Not at all, Chancellor," Toran responded smoothly. "I'm honored by their willingness to share your culture." Something in his response seemed to satisfy her. "The binding dance begins in 1 hour. I expect all 3 of you to attend." With that, she departed, leaving a charged silence behind. Celine moved closer to Toran, her voice pitched for his ears alone. "She's concerned about how quickly we're opening up to you. Our kind doesn't typically form connections so rapidly." "Is that what's happening between us? Forming a connection?" Toran asked carefully. Neria rejoined them, her golden light pulsing slightly stronger. "You must have noticed how other nobles react when we touch you. They sense the energy transfer." "I thought that was just part of your physiology," Toran admitted. The twins exchanged glances. "It is," Celine confirmed, "but we typically maintain strict control over it." "With you?" She hesitated. "With you, it happens naturally," Neria finished. "That hasn't occurred with any other human in recorded history." As they left the archives to prepare for the binding dance, Toran felt the weight of unspoken implications. Whatever was developing between them clearly transcended normal diplomatic relations, and based on the Chancellor's subtle warnings, potentially ventured into forbidden territory. "What exactly is this binding dance?" he asked as they approached the central chamber where music had begun to play. Neria's expression grew serious. "It's a ritual of temporary connection, a controlled sharing of life essence between participants. Most humans observe rather than participate," Selene added gently. "And you?" Toran asked. "Will you be participating?" Their synchronized answer sent an unexpected thrill through him. "Only if you join us." The binding dance, the grand pavilion had been transformed for the binding dance. Crystal structures rose from the floor like frozen fountains, each emitting pulses of light in harmony with the ethereal music that seemed to originate from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Elysian nobles gathered in small clusters, their bodies already beginning to synchronize with the rhythm. "The dance begins with separation," Neria explained, positioning Toran at one end of the pavilion. "I'll be across the chamber, Selene, at the third point. When the resonance reaches its peak, we move toward one another." "What should I do?" Toran asked, suddenly acutely aware of his humanity among these beings. Selene touched his hand briefly, sending a cool silver sensation up his arm. "Feel the music. Let it guide your movements. We'll find you." With that, the twins glided away to their positions. Toran watched as other Elysians began to move, their bodies seeming to phase between solidity and translucence as they danced. The music intensified, and he felt a strange pull, subtle at first, then increasingly insistent, drawing him toward the center of the room. He surrendered to the sensation, allowing his body to move instinctively. As he did, he noticed several Elysian nobles watching him with undisguised surprise. Clearly, they hadn't expected a human to respond to the resonance. Across the pavilion, Neria had begun her approach, her golden light leaving trailing patterns in the air behind her. From another direction, Selene's silver-blue glow created contrasting geometries as she moved. They were dancing toward him, and remarkably, he found himself moving precisely in counterpoint, as though they had rehearsed for years. When they converged at the center, the music crescendoed. Neria extended one hand, Selene the other, and Toran grasped them both. The contact triggered something profound, a circuit completed. Energy flowed between them in visible ribbons of light, gold from Neria, silver from Selene, and to his astonishment, a deep azure blue from himself. Around them, the dance continued. But many had paused to witness the unprecedented connection forming between the human diplomat and the Chancellor's daughters. Within the energy exchange, communication transcended words. Toran experienced flashes of the twin centuries of existence, their isolation as royalty, their secret observations of other worlds, their growing fascination with humanity's brief but vibrant lives. In return, they received his memories, childhood on Earth, years of diplomatic training, the weight of representing humanity's interests, and his private loneliness among the stars. "This is intense," he managed to say aloud, his voice sounding distant to his own ears. "You're experiencing a true binding," Selene whispered, her silver eyes wide. "No human has ever formed a complete circuit before," Neria finished, her golden gaze equally astonished. The energy between them intensified, spiraling upward in a twisting helix of gold, silver, and blue. Other dancers moved away, creating space around the unprecedented phenomenon. From her elevated observation platform, Chancellor Lyra rose to her feet, her expression shifting from diplomatic neutrality to alarm. In that moment, Toran glimpsed something in the shared consciousness, a fragment of prophecy quickly hidden by one of the twins. Yet not before he caught impressions of three figures, three worlds, and a fundamental change in the cosmic order. The music suddenly shifted, breaking the trance. The energy connecting them didn't sever completely, but receded to a subtle link that remained even as they released their physical contact. "What just happened?" Toron asked, his voice low as he noticed the mixture of awe and concern on the faces surrounding them. "Something unprecedented," Selene replied, her normally serene demeanor disturbed. Neria looked toward her mother, who was now conferring urgently with other Elysian elders. "Something that will have consequences," she said grimly. "The binding isn't supposed to form permanent connections, especially not with humans." "Permanent?" Toron echoed. Both twins touched their chests in identical gestures. "Can you not feel it?" Selene asked. "The thread connecting us remains." Indeed, Toron could sense it, a subtle awareness of their presence that persisted despite their physical separation. Before he could question further, Chancellor Lyra's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. "The festival will conclude for tonight," she announced. "Ambassador Vega, I request your presence in the council chamber, immediately." As royal guards moved to escort him, Neria and Selene exchanged worried glances. "Remember what you glimpsed in the connection," Neria said quickly. "We'll find you before dawn," Selene promised, her silver light dimming as Toron was led away. Shadows of the Covenant, the council chamber felt arctic compared to the warmth of the binding dance. 7. Elysian elders sat in a semicircle on crystalline thrones that seemed to grow directly from the floor. Chancellor Lyra occupied the central position. Her normally serene features hardened into an expression of grave concern. "Ambassador Vega," she began, her voice echoing unnaturally in the chamber, "you have participated in something beyond your understanding." Toron stood tall, calling upon years of diplomatic training. "With respect, Chancellor, I was invited to participate by your daughters." "Who have exceeded their authority," replied an elder to Lyra's right, his ancient face lined with disapproval. "The binding dance is a ceremonial exchange, not meant to form lasting connections, particularly with ephemeral species." "Ephemeral?" Toron questioned, feeling a flicker of indignation. Chancellor Lyra made a subtle gesture, silencing her colleague. "Humans live brief lives by our standards, Ambassador. A permanent binding with beings who will continue for centuries after you are gone creates ... complications." "What exactly happened during the dance?" Toron asked directly. "I experienced something I can't fully explain, and I suspect there's more you're not telling me." The council members exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, the Chancellor nodded to an elder on her left, who rose and approached a wall that immediately transformed into a display of ancient symbols. "The Stellar Covenant was formed 50,000 years ago," the elder explained, "when our kind pledged to limit our natural abilities to draw energy from other beings. Before the Covenant, we were feared throughout the galaxy as energy vampires, sustaining our long lives by draining others." Toron processed this revelation carefully. "The energy exchange during the dance, that was feeding?" "A ceremonial echo of our ancient nature," Chancellor Lyra clarified. "Regulated, contained, and mutual. What happened between you and my daughters was different. Instead of a temporary exchange, you formed a triadic bond, something mentioned only in our most ancient prophecies." Another elder stepped forward, waving a hand to change the display to 3 intertwined spirals. "The prophecy of 3 worlds speaks of beings from different realms forming a bond that breaks the chains of ancient oaths and rewrites the covenant of stars." "You believe that's what's happening?" Toron asked incredulously. "We cannot discount the possibility," the Chancellor replied. "The timing is significant. The alignment of our twin moons occurs precisely when your Earth and our neighboring rival Dominar are also in alignment, 3 worlds in perfect conjunction." Toron felt the subtle, presence of Nerea and Selene in his mind growing stronger. As though they were approaching? What does this mean for our diplomatic relations? The Chancellor's expression softened slightly. That depends on what happens next. The traditional response would be to sever the connection immediately and send you back to Earth. But? Tehran prompted, sensing her hesitation. But my daughters have never shown interest in our politics or prophecies before. Their unprecedented connection to you suggests forces beyond our control are at work. She rose from her throne. You will be confined to your quarters until morning while the council deliberates. Guards will escort you. As Tehran was led from the chamber, he felt a distinct impression that wasn't his own thought. Third corridor. Count 5 crystalline pillars. Touch the 5th. Nerea's voice somehow projected through their new connection. When he reached the specified location, he paused, pretending to admire the architecture. The guards maintained a respectful distance as he casually traced his fingers along the 5th pillar. The crystal responded to his touch, creating a small opening in the wall beside it. Now, move quickly. Selene's voice this time, cooler but equally urgent. Tehran slipped through the opening, which sealed instantly behind him. He found himself in a narrow passage where the twins waited. Nerea's golden light dimmed to a faint glow. Selene's silver barely visible. You're risking much by defying the council, he said quietly. They intend to sever our connection at dawn, Nerea replied, her usual confidence tempered with concern. The process could harm you. Selene touched his temple gently. We've accessed the complete prophecy. The council revealed only part of it to you. The full text speaks of a transformation, Nerea continued. A human bound to twin stars shall become a bridge between worlds, neither fully human nor Elysian, but something new. And this transformation has already begun, Selene added. The energy patterns in your cellular structure are changing. You felt it during the dance. Tehran realized she was right. Subtle alterations in his perception heightened awareness. The ability to sense the twins even when they weren't physically present. The council fears change, Nerea said, her golden eyes intense in the dimness. But some of us believe this connection was meant to occur, that it offers a new path forward for all 3 worlds. What happens now? Tehran asked. Selene revealed a small crystal device. This will transport us to the ancient temple at the conjunction point between our moons. There, when all 3 worlds align at dawn, we can either complete the transformation or sever the connection forever, Nerea finished. But the choice must be yours, Tehran. We've lived for centuries and will continue for many more. You're being asked to become something no human has ever been. The weight of the decision settled over him. What about Earth? My mission? If the prophecy is fulfilled, you'll become more valuable to both worlds than any conventional diplomat could be, Selene answered. A true bridge between species. Footsteps echoed in the corridor beyond, guards discovering his absence. Time was running short. Nerea extended her hand. Selene mirrored the gesture from his other side. We must go now if we're going. The alignment begins in 1 hour. Taking a deep breath, Tehran placed his hands in theirs. The crystal device activated, surrounding them in spiraling light as the palace dissolved around them. Dawn of 3 worlds. The ancient temple stood on a precipice between worlds, a structure that seemed to exist partially in physical reality and partially in some other dimension. Its towering spires pierced the pre-dawn sky, while its foundations disappeared into swirling mist. Above, the twin moons of Elysia hung impossibly large on the horizon, approaching perfect alignment. We have very little time, Selene said as they materialized on the temple's central platform. The council will have detected our transport signature. Nerea moved quickly to a crystalline altar at the center, her hands working to activate ancient mechanisms embedded within. The alignment occurs in precisely 7 minutes. Once it begins, we'll have only moments to complete the transformation. Turan approached the edge of the platform, gazing out at the spectacular view. From this vantage point, he could see not only Elysia's sweeping crystalline landscapes, but somehow Earth and Dominar as well, 3 worlds superimposed upon one another as the cosmic alignment neared completion. This place exists at the convergence point between our worlds, Selene explained, joining him. Only during the alignment does it become fully tangible. What happens if we go through with this? Turan asked. What do I become? Neria paused her preparations. According to the prophecy, you'll become a triad being possessing aspects of all 3 worlds. Not immortal like us, but with a lifespan far beyond human normal. Able to draw and share energy like an Elysian. And carrying something from Dominar as well, though that part remains unclear. And our connection? Permanent, Selene confirmed. We would be bound together across any distance, sharing perceptions, thoughts, even emotions if we choose to. A distant sound of transport energy signaled they weren't alone. Royal guards materialized at the temple's lower levels, with Chancellor Lyra at their center. My daughters, her voice carried easily up to them, this defiance has gone far enough. The human cannot possibly understand what you're offering. Neria stepped forward defiantly. He understands better than the council does. You've hidden behind the old covenant for millennia, fearing what might happen if we form true connections with other species. The covenant protects all worlds from our hunger. The Chancellor countered, ascending the steps with surprising speed. It also isolates us, Selene replied, her typically quiet voice gaining strength. We've watched other civilizations forge alliances, share knowledge, evolve together while we remain static, frozen in ancient traditions. The first ray of dawn broke over the horizon as the cosmic alignment reached its zenith. The twin moons perfectly overlapped, and through some trick of dimensional physics, the outlines of Earth and Dominar became visible in the sky alongside them. A column of light struck the altar, activating patterns dormant for thousands of years. It's time to decide, Neria said, turning to Turan. Once the transformation begins, it cannot be reversed. Chancellor Lyra reached the upper platform, her guards forming a perimeter. Ambassador Vega, I implore you to reconsider. The prophecy speaks not only of transformation but of upheaval. The old order shall fall, and power long held shall disperse among the many. Our entire social structure is based on the fear that sharing power means losing it. Turan finished. Years of diplomatic insight crystallizing in this moment. Chancellor, I've spent my career building bridges between worlds. What if this connection isn't a threat but an opportunity? A new kind of relationship between our peoples? The light intensified, creating a triangular pattern connecting Turan, Neria, and Selene. Energy began to flow between them, reminiscent of the binding dance but vastly more powerful. Make your choice now, Selene urged as the guards advanced. Turan looked from the twins to the Chancellor, then to the 3 worlds visible in the dawn sky. In that moment, he understood that some diplomatic missions transcended official mandates. Sometimes, to truly connect worlds, one had to become the connection. I choose transformation, he stated clearly. I choose a new covenant. He stepped into the center of the triangle. Neria and Selene joined him, their hands linking to complete the circuit. The energy flow intensified exponentially, lifting them slightly off the platform as the temple itself began to resonate with harmonic frequencies. Through their connection, Turan experienced the full depth of the twins' existence, centuries of observation, learning, and quiet longing for meaningful contact beyond their isolated world. They, in turn, absorbed his human perspective, the urgency of briefer lives, the adaptability born of constant change, the capacity to embrace the unknown. Chancellor Lyra and her guards shielded their eyes as the light became blinding. When it finally faded, 3 figures stood at the center of the altar, transformed yet recognizable. Toran's body now emanated a subtle blue luminescence similar to the Elysians, while maintaining his human form. Nerea and Selene appeared more solid than before, their ethereal nature tempered with new substance. The Chancellor approached cautiously. "What have you become?" Toran answered, though all 3 spoke together in perfect harmony. "We are the first of the triad, neither fully human nor fully Elysian, but a bridge between worlds and beyond." As they spoke, the ancient temple began to restructure itself, crystals shifting to create new patterns. Throughout Elysia, witnesses would later report similar transformations occurring in every major structure, the physical manifestation of change spreading through their society. "The Old Covenant served its purpose," Nerea continued, her golden light now interwoven with strands of blue. "It protected others from our hunger when we could not control ourselves. But we've evolved beyond that need," Selene added, her silver luminescence similarly changed. "The new covenant will be based on mutual exchange, not restriction and isolation." Chancellor Lyra looked upon her transformed daughters with a mixture of awe and resignation. "The prophecy unfolds whether we wish it or not. What would you have me tell the council?" Toran stepped forward, now able to communicate telepathically with the Elysians, but choosing to speak aloud. "Tell them that Earth extends a new kind of diplomatic relationship, one based on genuine connection rather than careful distance, and that I will serve as the first ambassador of the Triad, with the blessing of 3 worlds." As the cosmic alignment completed its cycle, the images of Earth and Dominar faded from view, returning to their proper places in space. But the connection forged between them remained, a bridge spanning light years, cultures, and species. That evening, as the news spread throughout the Stellar Covenant, Toran stood with Nerea and Selene on the balcony of the Crystal Palace. Their transformed nature had already sparked hundreds of inquiries from both humans and Elysians, curious about this new possibility for connection. "It won't be easy," Toran acknowledged, feeling the weight and wonder of his transformation. "Changing traditions that have stood for thousands of years never is." "But necessary," Nerea replied, her hand finding his, energy flowing freely between them without hunger or depletion. "And beautiful," Selene added, completing their circle. "A new dawn for 3 worlds." As night fell on Elysia, the first ambassadors from Earth and Dominar were already en route, drawn by news of the Triad's formation. Whatever challenges lay ahead, the path of isolation had ended. A new era of connection had begun, forged in the forbidden bond between a human diplomat and 2 alien princesses who had dared to imagine something more.